So now we need to work on allowing the user to delete individual images once they browse them in their album of choice. So we've uploaded these two images. Now we want to activate this X button which calls delete image.php, specifies an image and actually deletes the image. Now, as I pointed out in the last tutorial, or the last part of this tutorial, we need to create several checks. And the two functions are image check and delete image. Image check is going to check that an image belongs to a particular user or the current logged in user, and delete image will actually delete the image from the database and as well as the files themselves. Now the first thing we're going to do is create this delete image file. So let's create a new image in our root directory and call it delete underscore image.php. Now there's a couple of things we need to do in here. The first thing we need to do is include init.php. We don't need to include the header files because this file will delete the image and then return the user to the album they have just come from. So the first check we need to make is if the user is logged in or not. And if the user is not logged in, we want to refer them or locate them to index.php. We'll then exit the script. This is extremely important for security. So the next thing we need to do is check the image. So if image check $_get image ID is equal to false, then we want to just basically again locate the user or send the user to albums.php, and we then exit the script. The last check here will be to delete the image. We haven't actually created the image check function yet. That's because we obviously need to do this over in the image.func.php file, but we'll go ahead and write the rest of this and then we'll fill in the functions afterwards. Okay, so we need to check if the get variable of image ID is set. So we say if is set get image ID, then we can delete the image. So we call delete image, which is a function we're also yet to create, and this is $_get image ID. So let me just run through this if you're unclear. The first thing we're doing is checking if the user is not logged in and then relocating them. We're then checking if the image from the get variable, remember we pass a variable here which is the image ID, we pass that to this image check function, and if that returns false it means that a user is trying to delete another image that doesn't belong to them, so we just redirect them to albums.php. If the image ID is then actually set, we delete the image. If it's not set, we don't really want to do anything. We can also have a check here or empty and then specify this get image ID as well. Okay, so now underneath here we want to relocate the user once they have deleted the image. We can write exit if we want, but it doesn't really matter because we're at the end of the file anyway. So the location is going to be slightly different this time. We're going to locate the user to the album they just came from. Now instead of passing the album ID over with this, we can just use the $_server variable set, and we go HTTP referrer. And this will, referrer with one F, this will redirect the user to the page that they last came from. So at the moment we need to fill in this image check function and also the delete image function as well. So the first thing we'll do is go ahead and create the image check function. Now this is extremely simple. We feed in an image ID, which is relatively straightforward. We know what the image ID is. But first of all we want to sanitize this. So image ID equals int, so we're casting the image ID to an int. Because this is a user defined variable, I guess, like if I was to come in here and start to enter an SQL injection, we would then, injection if I can spell it properly, we would then be open to SQL attacks. So I've got an error just here. Oh, okay, yeah, so yeah, ignore that for now, that's just because we haven't come from a page. However, when we click on this, it will perform the current action. You can see that we've already just been redirected back to this page every time I'm actually clicking on this now. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with the image check function. We essentially want to just return a result, and this is going to be true or false. So we want to create a query first of all, so we can just say query is equal to MySQL query. Now the query is select count, and we're counting image ID. We've used this function before, from images, and this is where the image ID is equal to image ID, and this is extremely important, the user ID is equal to, and we append on the session as we've done in other parts of the tutorial as well. So nothing really new here, we're just selecting the count of images from images where the image ID equals the image ID we've fed in, so where we specify it in, let's just click on delete. We can't because it redirects us, but you know from the previous screen that we feed in a user ID, an image ID, sorry, in the get variable, and we check this against the user ID as well. So if this query returns 0, it means that the image does not belong to us. So what we can do is we can return, and using an inline if statement, we can return the MySQL result. And we're checking if the MySQL result of the query is equal to 0. So we compare the result of this query to 0. So if we return 0 rows from this query, it means that the user that's currently logged in doesn't actually have access to this image. So if so, we can actually go ahead and return false. Otherwise we return true, so let's go ahead and return true. So depending on the result of this query, this will mean that the image either belongs to the currently logged in user or doesn't. So now that we've completed this image check function, inside delete image, this will take into account this if statement here, and if this returns false, we locate to albums.php. So we can go ahead and test this by just opening up our browser, and we can go ahead and just copy this link here into our URL bar, and we can choose a completely different image name or image ID. So let's just go for 9999. When we press enter, oh, we have an error, so we can double check this. We've got wrong parameter count for MySQL result. So let's go over and change this, see what errors we have. So yes, the problem here is that we've used the MySQL query here into this result, but we need to select row 0, so I forgot to include that parameter.